Guys, intro time.
Wait, which intro?
The wisdom check.
Oh, good.
Wait, no. I thought we were keeping the old intro. What's wrong with the old one? People like that one.
It was too long.
Yeah.
Too many fucking gifs.
Yeah.
Yeah, but can we keep the part where I yell more?
Oh, no.
But it's the intro to end all intros.
I got like what? 2 lines last time?
Do you want more lines, Tim?
Well, no, not really.
In a world without answers.
Yeah.
Wait, you want to start with that?
Here we go. Exactly like last time.
Wait, okay, so we're doing the exact same way? Let's start with the Smoky Bar.
No, it's a new season. We have to have a new intro.
More.
Not sure why we thought this would go any differently.
Oh, well. Welcome, everyone, to the Wisdom Check, where Jeff and Dustin welcome a guest every week to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. Welcome.
This is ridiculous. I'm starting the stream now.
Wait, where's my die at? Well, we can't start until I botch, and it's not an intro unless I'm botching.
You're on.
All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Wisdom Check. I am Dustin. And over on the other side of the screen with me, as always, is Jeff. Say hello to.
Hey, good to see you all.
All right. Neat. And Jeff's mic's still working. Great. Fantastic. Show's going just as planned already. And we have a couple guests with us tonight. We have Indigo Chameleon and the Scribe here with us. So say hello to everyone.
Hi there.
Hello, everyone.
That
All
was
right.
better. I should have done that.
That was good. I like it.
So, for everyone out there who isn't maybe familiar with you, though I think most of the people in our chat currently are, you guys run a stream, Indigo Chameleon, and you guys have a couple of games that you guys run, one based in Neverland and one based in Wonderland, correct?
Correct.
And a few other games as well on top of that. And we're going to get to those here shortly, but first we'd like to hear about how you got into the hobby. So how'd you get started, each of you, in tabletop role-playing?
I can make this really simple. I dragged her kicking and screaming. I had listened to a few podcasts, and Dungeons and Dragons had always been sort of on the edge of my radar. Like, I never just got into it. And then so we had a couple of friends of ours that were like, hey, we're going to be starting a game of Dungeons and Dragons. And I was like, oh, that's great. So what is it? And they tried to explain it. And he was like, when is session 0? And I got this random Sunday that happened to be Super Bowl Sunday. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, and I remembered pulling Indigo aside, and I'm like, "There's this game, and like you roll dice, and then you're able to tell a story, but like it's very improv based. And does this seem like something that would interest you?" And you said,
No.
We've all been there.
We were in theater. Like, I grew up in the theater. We did lots of theater at the time. We were in an improv troupe and like all sorts of other things. We were like, I worked in theme park entertainment. Mm-hmm. So to me, there was, acting and theme park stuff and, doing theater. And then there was this game where you rolled dice and did a bunch of math, and then you had to say lines, but the lines weren't on paper and you had to make it up, and which was kind of like improv. And I remember being so nervous my first game and going, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to say something. Somebody's going to say something and I'm going to have to think of something to say, and it's probably going to be really dumb. And
So like,
now,
very familiar. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of us.
And other people go through that now and they'll talk about it. I'm like, oh gosh, believe me, I was there. Like, I was that person at the table going, oh gosh, I don't want to have to say anything. Maybe nobody will notice I'm here.
Absolutely. How long ago was this that you guys got going?
A few years.
Yeah, I want to say like 3 years. I remember, I don't remember much about the game. The only thing I remember about the game itself is the very first combat that we ever did. Indigo was the only girl at the table. Mm-hmm. Every part of this fight went wrong. I think there was like 5 nat 1s, and like everybody just was like getting the crud kicked out.
We broke a table. We set something on fire accidentally.
And then Indigo Chameleon's character strolled in. It took out like 4 individuals. And we got in the car after that session, and she was like, I think I like Dungeons and Dragons.
So, given timeline, it sounds like you started with 5th edition.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're
Yes.
you're in this like new wave of 5e players that are coming into the hobby and hearing about all the old grognards who are like, oh, you've never played First Ed, you don't understand the magic user. Like, did you get a bunch of that when you came in, like as you're meeting people? And
Because we started playing with a group of, most of us were new to it. There was somebody who'd started with, I think, 3. But the majority of us were started with 5e. So there was a little bit less of that at the time because, you know, a lot of us were newbies. Like a lot of us were theater background people who found this new outlet and went, oh gosh, this is amazing. Theater and math.
It is kind of cool like that because like our own group, we have a couple theater people in there. I wouldn't say most of us are though. Like I know Tim is, you know, Levi is, you know, and then the rest of us, we've kind of like tangentially been, you know, orchestra or something, you know, associated with the theater, but not really been involved. And it's interesting the different dynamics at play. So, you know, like people that are into the music theater and that kind of stuff have a different take on gaming than, say, the people that are into it from, I don't know, like the board gaming side of things. You know, so like, what are the sort of things you find most compelling about gaming?
Honestly, at the end of the day, it's weird. I've been playing the game for, like I said, like a few years, but DMing even shorter than that. And I probably follow the same path of DMing of being like, guys, we should all play a game, and everybody being like, that's great, you're gonna DM, and I was like, I'm gonna DM. For me, the greatest appeal of this game, from a DM perspective, I guess from a player perspective, is watching people be their best selves. There is no other game like it on the planet. Like there, and I'll stand by this. Like, yes, this is collaborative storytelling to the highest degree, and yes, there are these moments where, you know, things get silly and the table breaks and things are set on fire, but this is also the game where I saw somebody run off by themselves to sacrifice themselves for the party. This is the same game that people are able to work through issues or social stigmas or deep things that no other game, I think, it would allow them to face. And it's this unspoken secret amongst all of us Dungeons and Dragons players that at the end of the day, we kind of laugh and, yeah, we roll dice on table and yeah, we play this game. But for us, we've seen those moments. We've seen our best friend do something so crazy, heroic, and stupidly brave that we never look at them the same way again because their character did something, or we find those moments. The thrill of a nat 20, the crushing defeat of a nat 1, you can only like try to describe it. It's when you're wrapped up in the game and you're telling the stories and you're in the moment. Like that's why we do this game. That's why we play. That's why we get together and turn on cameras or sit at the same table together and week after week, and it never gets old.
Yeah, new stories and new facets of somebody. It is truly an amazing medium. You know, you get to, like you said, see all that. Then there's so many, you know, passionate moments that you have in these games. You know, and there's a good opportunity to experience all kinds of strange calamities and, you know, dangers. And I mention this a lot, but it's empowering to have a situation where there's something so dangerous that you can fix. You know, it's a nice feeling, I think, particularly for us, maybe today. You know? Yeah. You were about to say something.
I think for me too, there's a freedom in getting to explore facets of yourself that you don't necessarily get to explore in your everyday life. My first character that I created, I learned so much about characters, about myself from, because I created this this ranger that was just a little bit of a like an OP fighter in a way, like just without trying to, I ended up with just the perfect combination of just an incredibly hard hitter. Yeah. Very low charisma. And And it was really fun at first to be able to hit really hard and get, more damage than anybody else. But that wore off really, really quickly. Yeah. And all of a sudden, I got to discover, and in subsequent characters, I've gotten to discover the joy of a nat 1 just as much as the joy of a nat 20. I've gotten to get to find the love that comes from making that decision that is the worst decision to make, but it's the decision that your character would make, and embracing it and taking joy in the consequences, even when they're bad, because you're living this truth. And quite often you're getting to live truths in characters that, because of your job, because of responsibilities, because of all these other factors, because of who you are as a person, you wouldn't normally get to make.
Exactly.
And there's just such a freedom in that, that, I think that's what I've gotten from it personally.
Yeah, you guys' table is one of the best I've seen about really investing into the story. And I think that, in part is part of what Scribe does as a DM as well. But I mean, every time I tune into your guys' show, there's people almost like in tears at times at the table, pretty much, it seems like all the time. Like I was telling Jeff and Clint last week when I was telling you guys were coming up this week, I said, that finale to Wonderland season 1, I was like, that was like a master thesis in how you end a game. Like it was like people could watch that, and I sent it to them. I was like, you just got to see how he does this. Like it's absolutely amazing. And like there wasn't a dry eye at the table. Like it was fantastic. So, kudos to you guys and for pushing the story to that point and doing it from that narrative directive. Because I watch a lot of streams, and that is not the norm, not at all. So
thank you. That means the world.
Well, and I think by that point, we were all so invested in those characters, and a couple of them came back through to season 2, but for the most part, like people were saying goodbye. And even the characters that came through, they weren't the same. All of us in our own way were saying goodbye to characters, and we knew these characters. I talk now because my characters was one of the ones that came through to season 2 in a slightly different way. But I talk now about when we talk about hypotheticals. Well, this could happen, and what are you going to do if this happens, and what if this happens? And I'm like, I know her now. I don't have to think ahead of time about what I might do or what I might say, because I don't know, because this person might say this thing differently or do this thing differently. I'm not going to know how she reacts until whatever's going to happen happens. But I have faith that she's going to say whatever she's going to say. She's going to do whatever she would do, because, and I think that so many of us at the table, like those characters in Wonder and in Never and in these other games have become such a part of us that we're no longer up here, we're here. And there's such a joy in that.
So what do you think caused that? Like what sorts of things are you doing that are allowing you to step into your character so well?
I think that it has to be very, very hard as a DM to balance fighting and RP time. I think that's got to be sometimes one of the hardest things as a DM. But having that time, having that bit of downtime to RP, having that time, especially because our games tend to be so accelerated, because we're really in 2-hour games once per week. Because by the time we get through, we're going 8 to 10, 15, 10:30. And when you take announcements out and everything else, it's right. We know we have to keep the pace up. We know that we have to be ready in combat. We know that there's not a lot of time to sit around and think about what we're going to do next or argue about what we're going to do next. But it means that when we get to that time where our characters can get to know each other, we have to make the most of it.
Yeah. So when you're sitting there as a DM, Scribe, and you're trying to set up these situations, there's oftentimes kind of a feeling of, for a lot of DMs, anxiety of letting a scene hang, for the players to kind of step into that space. How do you deal with that? Or do you feel that?
Oh, I hate it. It's terrifying. It's walking this weird tightrope. Like you want to give them enough room to breathe, but at the same time, you don't want it to die. Like, you don't want to lose the momentum that of emotional stability. The hardest lesson for me as a DM, like starting off early, was wanting to fill the quiet, like wanting to like, and you know, there have people having this quiet scene, and then 3 orcs show up. Everyone roll initiative. Like, no, like. It's like I want so much for them. I mean, it's hard as a DM not to fall in love with your characters. I mean, a part of you has to be like, I love you so much, I'm going to try to kill you every week. Like,
Exactly.
But not being afraid of the quiet, not being afraid to let them breathe. And unfortunately, that's a lesson that comes hard to some, easier to others. This is my game in the terms of like I am the DM, but at the end of the day, this is our game. Like they are feeding off of me, and I am feeding off of them, and like forcing something upon them is not nearly as satisfying as them having the right to choose, and having the quiet moments like that. As a DM is also giving me, and please cover your ears for this one, a chance to scramble and go, oh my God, I wasn't expecting that at all.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, lots of those moments. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of them.
But yeah, any advice I could give to a DM is just like, I know it's scary, I know it's hard, but those quiet moments, like that is where the characters shine. And that's where you can just step back and watch and appreciate everything that your players are bringing to the table. Like, you gave them the playground, so let them play. But it's still scary as hell to do it. So,
do you feel like it turns a corner of what am I going to put them up against next week? Because what situation am I going to drop them into and just see what they do? Like, is that when you turn the corner? Right? Is it?
It is. It honestly is. I always. We work with the players, and we lovingly craft a part of them. Like, it's every player loves the character that they play. It doesn't matter their alignment. It doesn't matter the class. It doesn't matter the race. You're putting a bit of your soul, a bit of who you are into this character. And my job as your DM is to lovingly help you craft this character, and then psychologically torment them, and not for my own gain, but to help you understand who they are. Like, the best compliment Indigo has given me is that she knows who her characters are, because you present the situation and they go, what did you want us to do here? And I said, I didn't want you to do anything. All I'm doing is giving you this, and then you are, through RP, through combat, through your abilities, through your choices. And my job is just to give you enough toys to play with, enough situations that you discover who you are, who they are, so that when we get to that finale of Wonderland, like, they have those moments because they're saying goodbye to somebody that is a fully realized part of themselves.
Yeah.
Nope. I think you know who this is. Meowdeath here in the chat says that you give them character homework. So what does that look like?
It depends on the game. But for character homework, there have been some characters that I will ask questions of, not expecting an answer, but just wanting them to think on the question. I will, say, hey, I need you to think about this. Is this what you want? What is it you want? For all of my players, I do this. I do another campaign that's a mixture of historical fiction and sci-fi set in D&D 5e. But I basically send questions sometimes to players like, hey, what do you want? What is a little want that your character has? What's a big want that your character has? Almost as if every couple of months I can just get a bead on, and it's sometimes I'm like, okay, that tracks, but sometimes my players surprise the heck out of me.
Yeah.
They're growing in a way that they've kept close to themselves, that they're nourishing, they're hiding this little flower that they want to grow. And I had no idea, but as a storyteller, I know, like, okay, like if this is what they want, then I can help push them towards that.
Mhm.
So the homework I give them is more like, how can I help you be a better storyteller?
Well, and to be fair, Meowth is part of that Thursday campaign that he talked about that goes through these different time periods. And so he will drop these little innocuous hints as to kind of where we're headed next.
Mhm.
And she, as the research goddess, will take this one little hint and turn it into a journal of research on a particular event. So self-imposed homework is part of it too.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Like there's no way. I'm good at research. I'm good at looking into historical time periods. I cannot compete. She's amazing.
Now, as players, do you ever give the DM homework, or you go say, "Hey, listen, here's something that we want to do"? Like, do you ever pitch it back the other?
I think it's definitely happened with people. We've definitely talked about, where do you want to see your character going? But I feel like it's very much a two-way conversation. It's I know that these things are happening and this is where I feel my character's wanting to go. And there are also times when we as players and then we as characters have to find those moments where, okay, my character is feeling like this. And right now my character would probably say, you know what? I just need to go be by myself for like a month and I'll see you guys in a little while. And you almost have to go, okay, but what if they didn't?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What other choices do they have? Or my character could be really, really sad and angry right now, but that's no fun for anyone. So how else could my character feel about this? And why could they feel that way? What's a different choice that I could make that still is true to my character, but is a more interesting choice?
Right.
And so that I think led to a lot of conversations with us. And I think it's probably led to conversations that you've had with other players that are in similar situations, to help characters find themselves. But we always have, there are times when you're on an adventure with a party and your character might decide to stay outside the cave, but what if they didn't?
Right. Yeah.
Why might they go into that cave? This is what we have to consider, because in the end, we're all playing this game together, and it's not very interesting if you sit and sulk outside the cave.
Yeah.
Now, we do have to honor something in the chat, because for those watching, if you spend your cams, we call them cams because one of our players cam, the little points you get down the channels now, if for 100 you can redeem something, and we'll ask it on the chat here. But our DM Levi says that these two are in my tribe. I support them. They're dramas. Dramas are the right way to play. Power gamers blow. He just wanted to pass that along to you while we're here. And as a follow-up to what you were just talking about a little bit, as a husband-wife couple, do you guys find that you talk a lot about it between games? Like, do you have a lot of conversation between the two of you that maybe other players don't always get to have because you guys are like a couple? Like, that's a dynamic you don't see necessarily a lot of.
Yes and no. We've really had to be good about finding the things we can talk about and finding the things we can't talk about. So I specifically, I don't really like knowing things ahead of time because I like to be able to react in the moment, and I don't want to spin it around in my head until I've overthought it.
Exactly.
But when it comes to character specific things, where is my character heading with this? These are conversations we can have when there's an overarching thing that we're aware of. These are conversations we can have when we're talking about deities of Wonderland. So I think we've learned how to select those conversations.
She's not being entirely accurate. Indigo Chameleon has what I like to call eureka moments. Now I'm going to say,
okay,
it is 11:30 at night, gentlemen. We are in bed. We are. I am asleep, and I hear, and she bolts up out of a dead sleep. She's like, my character, I think she would feel like this. Well, and then I go, okay, I support this. And he goes, okay, well, good night. And then to sleep, and I'm just like, what just happened? What? So yeah, but I will back up that like you don't want to know anything about it. You're fine talking about characters and stuff like that, but those to go from the person that's like, I don't know if I want to go play a game of D&D to like bolting out of a dead sleep at 11:30 to be like, what if I learned Blight? Just and then going back to sleep is that transition is amazing.
It does touch on something pretty deep, that sense of identity and exploration, because even when you're just exploring a character's personality, I mean, that's something you don't get to do day to day, usually.
No.
You don't get to play as somebody else. You're stuck in your role, typically, even though technically we have that ability, but nobody ever uses it, so it's really interesting to see how much room there is to grow as a player and as a character. Now, are you playing long arcs, or are these like short campaigns, long campaigns? Like you're saying you're playing 2 hours weekly, so that's already a lot, and that's pretty awesome. But the length of time a campaign goes can really change how much time a character has to develop.
Wonder was the first season was about a year, a little over a year, right?
It was 43 episodes, and I'm still angry about it because 42 would have been the answer to like the universe and everything. Like I don't know why I overshot.
Oh, you shot by one.
But about a year, and then the Neverland is catching up a little bit on that. I don't.
Those all tend to be long arcs, but then there are shorter arcs within the long over arc. And then when we talked about Lost Isle, we talked about kind of reformatting that to be done in mini arcs, so that each mini arc could be standalone. There's still some, like at least one kind of over arc that I've noticed, that I guess any of the players have probably noticed too. But they self-contain to anywhere from 3 to 5 or so. And they're kind of meant to be able to, if you haven't been watching all the way through, you could just pick up
bite size,
one of those, or just watch, since they're about 2 hours long, you could kind of in anywhere from 6 to 10 hours, you could see the whole arc.
It's a weird, the question is so good. And because a long arc gives you a chance to breathe. It really does, and it gives you a chance to grow from the ground up. However, I will say that there are some players out there and some DMs out there that can put more thought and character work into a 4-hour one-shot than I've seen players put into an entire campaign.
That's true. That's true.
And come in with the backstory. So I have lucked out as a DM to have players in my games that are so crazy emotionally invested that as a DM, it's our job to continue the story until it hits its natural ending point. Like you got to know when to leave the party. You don't want to overstay your welcome and things of that sort, but you want to give them just enough time. And that's another thing that's hard to do. Like it's hard. A part of you wants to stay here forever and grow with these characters. And why do we have to stop at level 20? Let's, but another part of me has gotten to the point where I enjoy an ending. I can't savor the beginning and the middle and not also want to give them the endings that they've earned and deserved, and to see them go out the way they want to go out.
Yeah, and many a show or story or game or whatever you want to put out there, media has failed at this at some point. It's a hard thing to land, and hats off to anyone who can actually pull it off, because especially with these long ones, that have been compelling, that have touched so many aspects and really gone around. People build up a lot of internal ideas of what's going on narratively. They build up a lot of internal concepts of the other characters, and making sure all of those hit in that ending is very difficult. Do you have any tactics that you've employed to be successful, or is it just kind of a lucky sort of events? Or
bourbon helps. No. Oh God. Surround yourself with muses, people that you can talk to about the campaign and stuff like that. Communication with your players. I guess what has also helped me, as much as they've become emotionally invested in their characters, you can't be afraid as the DM. It's good to have a little bit of separation. There has to be a little bit of a wall, even when you're married to a player. But being in love with these characters, why wouldn't you be? You've been traveling with them as long as they've been traveling. Like you've been there at their side. You've been the voice of every evil villain and every awful NPC, and you've been that. But in the back of my mind, like, even though I've been that, I've set them up for those great moments. And you can feel, as a DM, like as a player, you can start to feel when your character is starting to hit the high point of that arc, the high point of that journey. And I'm I'm a fan of going out swinging. Like I'm a big fan of like if you're gonna take them out, be it good or be it bad, give them. It's what's that thing that's like, you go see like theater, you go see a movie and TV, and it's never just an ordinary day. It's either the greatest or the worst day of their life. Like,
yeah.
We want that as authors, as co-authors, co-players. So it's the best gift we can give to them, to the players. As a DM, we can, like, I can give you certain things, but the best gift I can give to you is that ending that you need and that you want and that you deserve.
Now, we do have a redeemed wisdom check question over here. So let's see. DM Thaco. I play with my wife. She is now a DM. How hard is it to keep your distance from the story in a meta sense, knowing that you can always ask what something means or was missed, for example?
I feel like the players in general, especially because we are all close. Most of us knew each other as friends before we started playing. So I feel like probably at times we're all guilty of going, all right, so anyway, when this person did that, but we're also, one of the beautiful things about this medium is that there are times when, if we were just playing this at a table without the cameras, you're hurriedly trying to write things down and get everything down, and you can't. There are times when I just write a time down in my book. I'm like, okay, I can listen to that one more time, because there's no way I can get that all down. And I need to hear, or where something's happening, several things are happening, and I really kind of want to re-examine it. And I don't do that a lot, but I feel like that's been my go-to more than asking questions, because I can kind of justify that maybe, like, I heard it, I just didn't hear it as well as I thought I did. So I'll just go listen to it again. And I know that other players have done that as well too, where they've gone, oh my gosh, I missed like half of that. Isn't
it amazing how that happens? Like, I'm seeing the face you're making over there as a DM. It hurts to hear that, but
you're saying necessarily. A lot of people are talking now. Sometimes
it happens,
but sometimes there's just a lot going on, and there is no way to get it all down. There have also been times where things have happened, and then later I'm like, I want to see what faces other people were making when that was happening. Like, I want to see how they were reacting.
Well, or as someone whose name is on the stream, you're reading chat, you're trying to interact with people in the chat sometimes, and you'll miss a few things when you're doing something like that too. And you come back and you're like, oh, I missed something clearly just a minute ago. What just happened? I'm sorry. Like,
and because I'm kind of Yeah.
You
It's
have
been
to.
amazing watching some of our own episodes back because
Yeah.
Dustin and I will sit there and we're like, oh, okay, well, I remember this happening. He's like, wait, what? That happened?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. And then you will go back and watch it. And we're like, we're both wrong. It's like, I was there at the game, I swear.
Mhm.
So it is pretty nice having that option to go back and re-verify because it's weird because your attention is all in, or so you think. And then you look back and you realize, wow, either my memory is terrible or I wasn't paying as much attention as I thought I was.
Yeah. Well, and there have been times too, and it's not as, knock on wood, it's not as bad now because we've got the studio set up and everything else, but especially in the earlier days, because I was running tech and running I was just running a whole lot all at once. And so there were technical difficulties. If we were dropping frames, if something was going on, I was a little bit more focused on trying to make sure that was happening in the way it needed to happen.
Yeah.
And there were things that I missed. And so it was nice to be able to go, okay, what happened there when I was, it's
a skill to pick up all the multitasking on this and got those technical aspects you're talking about. Like usually Clint's running it and I can just watching his head explode at any episode. But like the few times I've done, some of these, like I was amazed by how distracting it is. Like not only just like running the thing, but even just as a casual player on a stream, just knowing that you have an audience and that, you're putting on a production for people. It's an entirely different beast.
Yeah, my Thursday night Zweihander game. I'm running the whole show. I'm running the stream. I'm running the chat. I'm running I'm DMing it. I'm doing the whole thing, and it's a lot to juggle. You find yourself trying to catch up on chat real quick and still listening to what your players are saying at the same time. It gets rough to juggle all that around sometimes. I'm always extremely happy when we have Clint around to run things. That's for damn sure. So
definitely,
including tonight.
Yeah.
It's been really nice because we've been able to kind of split tasks now with the studio set up. And he's been amazing about getting the stream started and running the stream. And he's been able to do that and DM. And so generally I'm over on audio board if we're having any issues. I'm on the chat and getting raids set up and that sort of thing. But it's still split tasks a little bit more, which I think has helped both of us a lot.
Yeah, that's good.
I can imagine if he was running every aspect like you're doing, and there have been times when you've kind of had to do that, it's a lot harder. And from a player's perspective, when I was kind of running everything from my side, there were times when I just felt like I was only half in the stream and having to go back and remember what happened.
Yeah. What made you guys decide to jump to streaming? Now, your first game was it just at your house or whatever, or at a friend's house? You were saying. So, at what point were you guys like, let's put this thing on Twitch? Let's start putting this thing out there and do.
It's like Dustin read my mind.
I've been thinking it for a bit. I was waiting for a good point. Put it back.
Some of our earliest games were when we first started, we actually ended up streaming. There was another channel that we did games on every once in a while, and then we were playing in our own home. We were playing just a home game, and that turned into streaming on a different channel. And we were helping with all the initial stuff to get that going, and it kind of gradually evolved into us starting to do this ourselves and really finding a lot of joy in it and finding that it was our creative outlet, our kind of new creative outlet, especially because we have young children and our creative outlet for so long before kids was theater. And theater can be really, really difficult when you're doing rehearsals from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m., but you've got little ones that have a bedtime of 7:30 or 8 p.m. And this opened up this whole avenue where we can have this creative expression and a lot of new tech that we hadn't dealt with before, and a lot of old stuff as far as theater and storytelling and that sort of thing that we did have a lot of experience with. And little ones could be in bed by 8, and all of this happened after that.
Exactly.
So it didn't mess with their schedules quite as much. So it kind of evolved too out of a practicality that really worked well for us.
Nice. Now, just to be clear, I heard the mic kind of cut out a little bit there. Did you actually play any games off stream, or was it always like from campaign 1 immediately to streaming?
No.
Yeah, and I'm going to drop a nerd card. We actually played like our Indigo Chameleon started because we were, like I said, we were streaming on other channels, and we had never thought to do it ourselves. We were doing this immersive theater show, and our Indigo Chameleon came from immersive theater, and then I was like, oh, we should have a board game night where we just play games and stuff like that. And then people came over, we played board games, and I was like, I've had this idea growing in my head to do like a Wonderland. You think people would like enjoy seeing a D&D game like that we stream here at the house? Mm-hmm. So cut to like us buying a big card table and setting it up in the living room, the sofa, the cats and the dog running around all over the
two little tiny webcams that were really far apart from each other.
That's how it starts out.
But yeah, playing D&D, I mean, we were also big fans of like Fiasco. Like, I don't know if you guys ever played Fiasco or Dread. Dread, where you play with the Jenga tower and stuff like that. So I think gaming with friends, like a lot of the times we're always like, let's do D&D. It's an excuse for us to hang out with our friends.
Exactly.
Yeah. Tell stories and just be like, some of them we only get to see on D&D night, you know, like we only get a chance to hang out and tell stories, but to have everybody come to our house, there's the secret, and us never have to leave. Like, you guys brought it up, like the audience, like that's a factor. Like we don't talk about it, but like they're the other person at the table.
Oh yeah,
for good or for worse. During certain, you know, streams and certain moments, like I love it. I love having that seventh spot where the audience is feeling the pain or influencing the game, or and it's a different dynamic.
It is, yeah. Now let's kind of dig in a little bit on some of your campaigns here, because we've kind of nibbled around the edges of the channel and talking about what you've been doing, but let's go ahead and dive into the center of this plate. So for those in the chat that may not have come across your content, can you kind of give a general synopsis of what they could expect there?
You want to do this? You want me to do this?
I'll do Wonder and takes. I don't know. We'll figure it out. All right. So Wonderland.
Let's see.
Oh gosh, of course I'm going to get it wrong now. Okay, Wonderland, the original concept started out as long after the time of Alice and the Mad Hatter, and you know, hundreds of years later, where these characters, these characters that we know from the story have become deified. You know, the Mad Hatter is you know, unto a god. There are ancestors of the original Hatter. You know, and you know these names are spoken with reverence in certain circles. There are followers of the Hatter and followers of the Caterpillar and followers of Cheshire. And so these characters becoming deified factored hugely into season 1. So it was a way to have the characters that you know be present, but not be interacting. I wasn't playing, you know, Alice and somebody else is playing the Mad Hatter, which I don't think would have worked as well. But you got to have homages. And what was really interesting is we had players at our table who were very, very familiar with the stories in Wonderland. And we had other players. We had one in particular who had never read the stories, who had never seen any of the movies, had no references whatsoever to them. But it was so interesting to see different characters' reactions based on their own backgrounds too, and that it worked regardless. It worked whether you were familiar with the stories or not. And I think that was what was so beautiful about it, was this world was this amazing world that people could immerse themselves in, whether or not they were familiar with the original stories. So.
That's pretty cool. You know, we'll go back and circle back to how some of these things are working, and you know, with such an established thing. But I want to hear more about what else is on the channel.
We also have a Neverland campaign. I've always been a big fan of like Neverland, and it fit with the theme of like taking beloved childhood stories where there's a lot of source. Neverland was fun because I kind of tried with Wonderland. All right, this is what happened hundreds of years in the future. But with Neverland, I got to try something different, because time kind of stops. So instead of going 100 years into the future, I had this great sickness come through Neverland, and the island shut down, including all living beings that happen to be trapped on the island.
A great sickness went through Neverland, and the whole island shut down. Sorry, relevance. Anyway,
Never heard this story. Tell me all about it.
Can we keep this whimsical, please? Jeez.
Anyway.
Spoilers. Jeez.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Well, she's just spoiled the ending of Neverland. So, Neverland was fun, and we have a Neverland campaign that's it gives me a chance to kind of play around with taking beloved childhood games. I've had a lot of fun of taking freeze tag and some of the things that you'd be familiar with in Neverland, and turning those on their head. I have a character who started the game as age 30, and with every level up, he de-ages. He's remembering more of his time as a Lost Boy, and it was another playground for me to play in. The only other campaign that we do is called The Lost Isle. This was a fever dream, and bless my players for following along and some of the weird ideas that I had. The whole premise of the Lost Isle is historical fiction meets sci-fi. Essentially, what if the player's handbook? What if the entire game of Dungeons and Dragons was not a tabletop game? What if it was an instruction manual for when the heroes awakened, and it was only the D&D players that would recognize what exactly was happening to them? When you created a character, you were channeling the innermost parts of you, so that when you awakened, that first character you ever created, that was you. That was the abilities and things that you had at your disposal. So the game started with the heroes in their first session playing a game of Dungeons and Dragons. And then I've been able to transport them in little mini arcs to the Salem witch trials. I got to thrust a whole bunch of players on the sinking of the Titanic. One of my favorite arcs that we just finished is Midsummer Night's Dream. But the summer courts and the fairy courts in the Fey realm are warring, and William Shakespeare is there as a bard to chronicle it, and the group is with him. So I have weird ideas, gang, but they are so much fun, and luckily I have a pool of players that take those ideas and just go, yes, okay, let's try this.
That's awesome. So have you branched out to other game systems? For instance, it seems like Changeling would be right up your alley if you haven't tried that.
I've looked into it. We've actually, and there's a few other systems as well. There's what's the superhero one that I always threaten to Mutants and Masterminds. Yes. I've heard is very, very good. Even for a while there, I was toying around with obscure gaming systems, like the old. I don't know if you guys are. This is going to be a deep pull. Do you guys remember the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles RPG?
Yeah.
Oh, we played that one. We did. It wasn't on stream. Yeah. Oh, it was weird, but it was fun.
I like that. I like that. The Harry Dresden Case files.
Dresden, yeah.
Nice. But for some reason, the worlds that I create are a little out there and a little, and the players that I have here are so familiar with 5e. Mm-hmm. Every time I lean towards doing a campaign set within another system, I keep getting pulled back to Dungeons and Dragons and the 5e in particular. Although I will say that once I played my first game, I immediately went on eBay and bought as many different editions of the game as I could. Mm-hmm. So I've got a little library that I pull random monsters from, past editions.
Sure.
Even though
it's good for inspiration. Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, I'm curious too, because a lot of your stuff is going back to kind of like childhood themes or fairy tales, these sorts of things. Is that a consistent through line for you on purpose, or is that just something that keeps happening?
Public domain has something to do with it.
We're going to talk a bit about that, of course. Yeah, working with the domain.
Yeah, I mean, that has something to do with it. It's how about this? Well, Stan Lee always said that every comic book was somebody's first comic, right? Mm-hmm. So I have gotten people into Dungeons and Dragons that know it as the nerd game, you know. But if we can, this is going to sound really weird for anybody. If we can convert one more person to the cult, because
one of us,
because they don't know the game, but they know who Peter Pan is. Mm-hmm. They don't know the game, but they know who the Cheshire Cat is, and they're interested in the story, and they're interested in pulling it in. It's approachable. Like Indigo Chameleon's mother, who is in her late 60s, we're gonna say late 60s. Yes. Was watching the games and got into it and played in a couple of one shots because
that's awesome.
That's amazing.
This game is for everybody. So these worlds are fun, and yes, like they're tapping into that childhood helps me as a DM and as a player, but it also makes it approachable to people that have never played. Mm-hmm. It's important.
So what would you consider to be some tips and tricks from a DM's perspective when you approach an IP that is so well known and beloved? Because we see this a lot with Star Wars, with Lord of the Rings, where people are like, I just want to avoid it because everyone has so much expectations of what this world is. And now it has to feel like Star Wars. It has to feel like Wonderland. Like, how do you manage that expectation of players and viewers?
I'll say this. How about this? The biggest tip I can give you, if you're nervous about representing an IP correctly, you are the perfect person to represent that IP correctly.
I love that.
If you are deathly afraid of ruining this IP, that means that one, you are the exact person that I want opening this world up, because I know that you have a passion for it, and I know that you have a love for it. You don't have to be the perfect Darth Vader. There's the perfect Luke Skywalker, and like you don't even have to be the perfect Jedi. You, as a creator, as a DM, and as a player, you have a story to tell. And I love Star Wars enough that I would love to hear that story. You love Neverland enough that I am dying to hear that story. Approaching something with passion means you're doing something right, and it's okay to be afraid, and it's okay to wonder, like, God, I hope I don't ruin this. Like, God, I hope I don't mess this up. But if you're doing a game of Dungeons and Dragons, if you're doing any role-playing game, we're not here for perfection. The best parts of this game are to be found in the imperfections. As long as you're approaching this with the passion and being heartfelt and hoping that you can be the best world or DM for your players, then you're doing it right. You're not messing it up.
And I think it's also important to perhaps add that you're not doing it alone, because if you're surrounding yourself with 5 or 6 other players that are just as passionate about that story as you are, that you're telling the story together, that it's not 5 people staring at you hoping that, or judging you for telling it right or telling it wrong. It's a group of people getting together that are passionate about something, that are telling a story together. And when people are working together, when it's, there are tables where it's an us versus them sort of feeling.
Sure.
But the most successful tables and the tables that you keep going back to, and the tables that people want to watch, are when we're all in it together. We're telling a story that we love.
Yeah. Now, as a player, since it is such a collaborative storytelling concept, what is it like to play in one of these established IPs when you're trying to come up with a character concept? What goes through your mind? Like, how do you set yourself into the world?
I think, and I can only speak for myself, because I think other people did different things. We had, for example, one character that directly linked themselves to being a relative of Mad Hatter. For some people, that works really well. And for some people, taking a character, and in these worlds, there are plenty of people that have no connections whatsoever to the main characters. And I created a character like for Wonderland that had an interaction, like her deity was the caterpillar. But other than that, and that's not even something she would have talked about a whole lot. Other than that, she was just her own person. You could have dropped her into any world and she would have fit. And for so many of us, I mean, that's who we are as people. You put us in any state, any country, any other place, we're still who we are. You know,
sure.
the core of the core of me is not that I'm from Florida. The core of me is so many other things. And so I don't think that there's a lot of pressure to create a character that is made to fit into this world. You create a character that's made to fit with you and whatever you're working on and what you're creating. And so much of it is kind of being open to moments. Zoe, who is my Wonderland character, I had this nerdy little druid bookworm who was kind of, would rather be in a library than hugging a tree. And in one of our first sessions, I don't even remember, it was allergy season. It was terrible. We had walked up to this, like, it was really allergy season. And we'd walked up to this cottage and he had this cottage. He described it. It was covered in flowers and blah, blah, blah. And I was sneezing badly because I had allergies. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, my druid is allergic to plants. This is amazing. And it turned into this whole character arc just from this weird, spontaneous thing that happened. But so much of the discovery of our characters comes from these just odd little moments in game or slightly out of game.
Yeah.
And embracing those moments can be so much fun and can lead to finding these characters.
Now, do you find that you have a pretty well established character before gameplay starts? So you go into it with, this is who my person is, the story will happen, and maybe some things shift around, but I already know who I am? Or are you a player that comes into it with a malleable concept and you're like, well, let's see what shape comes out of this in a couple games?
It's one of those best laid plans things.
Yeah.
Because, okay, I create characters and I have their backstories and I think I know who they are. And then we start playing and I find out that I don't quite know who they are yet. I get to learn about them too. One of the characters that I actually play off stream in a biweekly game, I spent more time on her backstory than probably any other character I have ever played. And it has taken me longer to get to know her than probably any other character that I've ever played, because I thought I understood her. I really did. And I didn't. And she's helping me learn who she is.
Yeah, because there's a big difference between knowing places and people and knowing the ways of thinking, right? And I think a lot of times when people spend a lot of time on backstory, like, really fleshing out things, that they're so focused on what and when that they forget why.
Yeah, creating a backstory, knowing where they came from is important, because if you know where they came from, you can know why they're reacting the way they're reacting. But being flexible and open to discovering them, because sometimes they turn out a little bit different than you anticipated.
Like every time.
I think it's important to be flexible. And I think that it's important to create that backstory, because I believe very much in like choosing spells and things like that based on who they are as a person. Like, not picking the most powerful spells because they're the most powerful spells, but going, okay, so this particular druid is all about the elements because this is where she came from. And so her spells are going to be a little bit more elemental. And, and then as she changes, some of those spells may change a bit, but not picking things here, finding who that person is and going, well, why would that be their cantrip? Why would they have discovered that cantrip first?
Right.
What was the moment that they realized that they could do magic, and what was that first thing that manifested with them? And I think that helps too, because that gives you the core of who they are, and it helps you to be able to discover them as you go.
Yeah.
Now, with season 1 of Wonder, I didn't go clear back to the very, very beginning to see, but I'm pretty sure for season 2, you guys did character creation live. Is that right? Or session 0, at least I know. But were you doing character creation at that point?
Yeah.
Yeah. We did a little. It was interesting to me to kind of have a little bit of the building process on screen. It was always something we kept sort of fiercely private at a certain point, to give them a path and not have them be influenced and stuff like that. But for season 2, we did do a fair bit of like character creation on camera, but with the chat and building worlds and taverns and stuff like that. We have this show called Homebrew and Brew with You,
Nice.
where we homebrew things and talk about it. But it plays into the fact that, like, listen, you can be the most clever DM in the entire world. You can be the most intelligent. You can have the best source material. I work better like having creative like input from other sources. Like I have planned for every available outcome. I've planned 100 outcomes for this potential situation, and Indigo is going to stroll in and do outcome 101.
Right.
And it's
every
gonna
time.
be nothing. Like, I have got sheets of planned material, and they surprise me every time. And it's
Absolutely.
Give yourself as a DM permission to be surprised. And it's a world changer.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that happened with I just tied up his Zweihander campaign last week, and I threw him into a situation. I was like, I don't know what they're going to do. And they turned on each other, half murdered each other, and half of them ran away. And I was like, that is not what I was expecting.
Yeah, that was surprising.
Happened. It was bad. I was like, the rolls just kept getting worse till finally they were like, screw it, we're out. And I was like, I did not write that one in there, but that's how this just ended. All right, folks, let's wrap. You just never know what's going to happen. Like, how it goes sometimes. So I've been there. Exactly what you say. I had all these ideas about how they could finish this thing, and then that's what they did to each other. And they were laughing the whole time. They loved it. It was they weren't even mad. It was fantastic. But I've totally been there.
One of the first combat sessions I did in Wonderland, I had the group having this long rest, and then three large like half orcs stumbled into the camp, and they're attempting to rob the group. And the group started arguing amongst themselves about, like, well, maybe we should just give them our stuff. And like, rightly. And then the group started fighting each other and then I had these 3 half orcs just sort of like back up slowly away from the group, as like she turned into a wolf and started attacking a player, and another player hit her, and then that player hit another player because they were disagreeing, and everyone started fighting. And I'm like, what is happening right now? Like, what is like? So yes, I feel your pain. It is.
They embraced the "No Tomorrow" slogan that I put before that last finale. I was like, "This is it, guys. There's no tomorrow. Play them out." And that's what they did. You just never know what players are going to do. They'll always take the path you didn't plan for. It's almost guaranteed. That's just the moment you drop the reins, they'll run. That's for sure.
It's true. It's true.
Well, and it has a lot to do, I guess, with how the campaign is laid out, right? Because I think Zweihander kind of lends itself to a little bit of that gritty betrayal.
The system does, yeah.
World of Darkness a little bit, kind of steers you into some of these outcomes. Whereas, a game that's built around heroics and, teamwork and camaraderie may get you different results. So it's interesting to see how system plays out sometimes.
Now, do you guys do your character creation as players talking to each other about it going in? Because with D&D 5e, more so than as Zweihander, team comp is a little more important. Our DM would argue that team comp's never important. But do you go in, and I kind of subscribe to his theory that the DM can fix whatever you're missing in a group. But a lot of people don't feel that way. So do you guys go in with an idea of like, I'm the druid, I'm going to handle this kind of niche, you're going to handle that kind of niche? Or do you guys just come in blind with each other like, hey, I'm playing this? And they're like, that's awesome. What are you playing? Like, do you already know?
I feel like we've all, I think in most of the campaigns, we've all come in with kind of, okay, this is who I am. Let's figure out who does what and how we get along. Like, I don't know. Okay.
Maybe disagreement on.
You are a very considerate and kind player. And there has been more than one campaigns where you're like, you know what? I'll wait till the very end. I'll see what we're missing.
Well, that's true. Yeah. No, once we establish our characters. Yeah. But I also understand that I get to play more than most of the players at our tables. So there is also something to be said for if somebody comes in, they're like, I really want to play a druid. Cool, and somebody else, I want to be a monk and I want to be I'm happy to step back and say, all right, what's left over? I haven't played a sorcerer before. I'll play a sorcerer,
Right.
That fearlessness is appreciated from a DM perspective. And there's a little bit of group talking, but you're right. For the most part, people just kind of pick what they're passionate about. And and anybody can fill in where it's missing and stuff like that. But I don't think we've ever had talk about designated healer or I think the word tank has been bandied about a little bit, but but it's never as long as they're happy, and if they're all playing, if we had 5 fighters, at the table, but everybody was happy and feeling different,
if everyone's happy, that's the end of the discussion, right?
Yeah, and that's the whole. You just start lobbing healing potions at them, right? Here, have some more healing potions every time they kill something, right? It drops healing potions.
Well, and especially with 5e, I feel like the classes are a lot more versatile.
They can.
I mean, you can have. There are more options for who can be the healers, and quite often you have healers that you might end up with 3 kind of half healers that are all kind of just jumping in where they can.
I think ultimately it does come down to what you were saying, though. It comes down to what makes people happy. And if it does make you happy to go against Leviathan 4's statement here, and pay
him and our mod are fighting in the chat right now. They're redeeming questions to make us say them on air here. So
oh no!
DM Levi says that team comp is horseshit, and Air Lasers responded, "Team comp sessions." Let's see, Levi's down here with team comp can drink itself to death in a small town bar, wondering what went wrong. And Meowth has then decided also, Chairman, is I also want to say a hashtag that's highlighted.
To be fair. We do tend to, most of the campaigns that we're in, we have tended to kind of free for all it. Hey, just help where you can and do what you can. There have been times when we've gone, all right, we're getting ready to go in this cave. There's something pretty big there. We need to come up with some sort of strategy. Now, we should probably be doing that more often than we actually are.
Now, the tactics on the table, you're saying, having a strategy going into a situation versus...
Right, but not an overall hey, anytime we... You're going to run up and you're going to smack him, and then I'm going to stand in the back and heal. And, there's a lot of benefit to doing that. We just don't typically do it.
No.
See, you're on Team Leroy Jenkins is what you're saying, right? You just Leroy right on in there and see what happens.
Yeah.
That's usually how I play. I mean, I don't know. That is get mad at me when I do that, but it's how I play.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that there is some stigma being bandied about by our DM on this topic that I do not agree with. But I think it's because I feel that there is a game component to Dungeons and Dragons, and some of the appeal to a game is that there are certain things that happen in the game system, and I don't think that those go against role playing necessarily. It can, I guess, if somebody really forces themselves against role playing, but I don't see how they naturally go against one another. I think if you're having fun playing the game, you're doing it right.
Absolutely, yeah, and here's the great thing, and chat. I really hope you're listening.
I think they are.
I say this with all sincerity. You are both right. You are both right. There is no wrong way to play this game. And if you get fed up to a certain point, you can also go do another game and try it this way and try it this way. And I do not have any of all the correct answers and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's the joy of the game, honestly. Working on party dynamics, planning before you fight the dragon or not planning,
Yeah.
And I think it's also the group too. There are going to be certain groups that their joy comes from the strategy and the planning and certain DMs who really respond to that better. I mean, DMs differ and players differ, and there are some groups that are not about planning. They don't want to plan, and they love the spontaneity, even if it all goes horribly wrong. So part of that also is groups finding each other and finding ways they work. And what I've noticed getting to kind of be part of 3 different campaigns is that may change from group to group and happen in its own way. And it may take a little while to get there. It may take the first few weeks or few months to figure out what works best for your group, but you'll find it.
Yeah. We got, let's see, is it Alcaboo's Bender here says, we totally plan on wonder and then change our mind before the encounter.
That is true.
Yep.
So a little bit of both. You come in with a plan and the plan goes right out the window, like round 1. Yeah.
Yeah, it oftentimes does.
There. So
Yeah, I think we got it nailed out here. I think it's all the bases are covered. But yeah, you are right. The tables are all different, and there are different groups, different dynamics at play, different motivations. That's why we ask those questions at the beginning. Like what things are interesting to people? Hey, it's Anna B. Meyer. She was on our show recently.
Hi, Anna. Thank you for stopping by.
Good seeing you there.
Hey.
And I think it's really important. Like, for instance, when we had Anna on, she was talking about how one of the things she really does a lot of is she is very simulationist. So like her worlds are very, I don't care who you are necessarily. This is the world. Here's how it operates, and these things are going to happen. How do you deal with the things that are happening? What is the world grinding you down to do? And that's one style, and then there's other styles all over the place. The purely narrative, there's some that are very game focused, and there's room in between all those concepts. And it's very interesting to see, how different people play the game,
You can always learn something a little new too. And that's what I enjoy is that the game evolves as much as the DM and the players evolve. The more that you listen and watch and participate in games, and I mean, there's not a session that goes by as a player where you don't learn something, or as a DM where you don't go like, oh, I didn't know about this ability. Like somebody asked me the other day, I was like, you've been DMing for a while now. It's like, do you feel like, how do you do combat? Do you feel like you've gotten combat down? And I was like, no. I've been doing this for years, for a year and a half, like a year. And I was like, and I'm still learning things about combat and how to balance enemies.
It's hard.
And it's hard, but you're constantly growing. But what other game can we say that for? Like, what other game is there that like grows with the people playing it,
Well, I think there's something to be said too for, not just as a player learning what works best with your group, but a big part of that is character too.
It is.
Because I mean, and I'm lucky enough because I get to play different characters. I've got my Friday character, my Never character. Like she's not a planner. She's like a 12-year-old girl that just wants to have adventures and play some games. So, I mean, if there's a scorpion on the table and she eats the scorpion to prove a point, like that's what she does, and then she makes some death saves. But like she's not going to be the one over here making plans about what to do in combat because she's going to get bored real quick. And so some of that comes into account too, is when players are being true to their characters, they're not going to do a lot of OC planning if their character wouldn't do that because it's not being true to their character.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's got to be a very different feel from Wonderland to Neverland, because Neverland, you're right, you're dealing with essentially, when you're dealing with like the Lost Boys, they're typically thought of as younger kids. I mean, you might have characters if you're going with more of a Hook style where they're older, like regressing back into it, but they're not people who have a lot of necessarily life experience to pull from to build plans around either. So is that something you see regularly in Neverland? A lot of
sort of. Our range of characters is we've got a Lost Boy. He's the one that's de-aging. We have a Never Boy because there are girls in Neverland too. They just didn't make it into the story.
That's nice.
But we also have a tribe member that's, hundreds of years old, if not more. So let me see. I'm trying to think around the table. We've basically only got 2 characters that are children.
Okay.
And the rest of the character, because and we've had some character change outs, but we had a pixie, we had a mermaid, we've got a pirate skeleton. So there is a spontaneity to it, but there's also a bunch of characters. Our tribe member is not very spontaneous at all. She's very wise and well thought out, and sometimes gets really frustrated by the impulsivity of some of the people around her. Mm-hmm. So, there's a lot of dynamics that come into play there.
Yeah, I mean, I think every character's going to be different. There's so many different personalities, and Earlaser says mermaid characters for the win there.
For the win.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think that is a blessing of being able to play in a lot of games, like you were saying. You get the chance to play more characters and really get to play out these different facets. Now, do you find that there are certain ones that you gravitate towards? Now, I know Indigo, you get to play more, maybe, and Scribe, maybe you get to play less. So
I think he knows the answer to this. He's waiting to see if he can answer correctly.
I have discovered a lot about myself as a past few years. What I have discovered is that when I first started playing, I was afraid of magic. Like, I was afraid that I would get overwhelmed by the spell list and everything else. It terrified me. I have and I also didn't want high charisma characters because I just didn't see the point. I was like, it's dumb stat. What is the point of high charisma? Let's put that down here and let's put up strength and con and all these other things. I have completely 180'd on all of that. I love magic characters because I love the creative aspect of spells. I love impulsive characters, characters that can be the first one to jump over the cliff. I love level 1 and 2 spells, because so many of those cantrips, prestidigitation and thaumaturgy, these are like spells that are, even those cantrips that are so versatile and you can do so many creative things with. Yeah. I love impulsivity. I love the creative aspects of D&D. I love high charisma characters that can talk somebody into just about anything. All of a sudden I don't need charm person anymore because I can just charm them on my own anytime I want. So that's what I've discovered that I like to play. I don't know. What about you?
D&D characters are like pizza. Even bad, they're still pretty good. It's mine is less about like the classes that like call to me and speak to me, and more of the character that I get to create, like the story and having that dictate it. I so rarely get to play that I'm so fiercely protective. Because I'm because I DM a lot, and I'm very happy to DM, very happy. But I also realize that if I get to sit at the table and play and not do it, I'm gonna love these characters. I'm gonna pour my heart and soul and into these characters, and if it's really good, I can use it as an NPC for future games. But yeah, I don't think I have a class that speaks to me. I personally, what I've been doing is taking the character class that I understand the least. So if I create a character in it, it offsets a deficiency I might have as a DM to make me a better DM. So I will choose a character to play so that I can go I fully understand this now. So now when a player comes to the table and they have questions, or I'm juggling combat, I can understand, because I've done it. I've played it. I understand these abilities and that sort.
That's cool. Meowdeath says, I like how Indigo is glossing over how her creative use of low-level spells have literally broken entire sessions. And I can relate, because that's one of the things I love about 5e Druid, that this is our first time playing 5e, our Everstorm game, and I'm playing the Druid. He's a pirate wood elf, and he's an a-hole. But the one thing I like about him is it's like endless options between all my animal forms and my spell selection. Like, I never feel like I don't have a tool in my tool belt for any situation. I can pull something out and make it happen. And I just absolutely love the way that Druid is played out in this. And
Druid looks
some of the other guys aren't so happy with their choices. Maybe they feel a little more pigeonholed because some things aren't as versatile. But I've always loved the hybrids, Paladin, Druid. That's where I've always gravitated. So how have you broken some games with some early spells?
Oh gosh, I think I've lost track. Can you think of some example, like some of the ones that have stood out to you? I don't know. I use combinations of, especially with my sorcerer. Oh my gosh, being able to use those sorcery points to basically cast 2 spells at once to make one of them a bonus action. You know, I can take a thaumaturgy. My eyes glow and my voice booms, and all of a sudden, like, I'm intimidating somebody, or I'm throwing turning something into a giant skull and scaring bad guys away, and then we don't fight them because they run away. Yay!
The first time she polymorphed one of my big bads into a snail, then flew however many feet into the air and just dropped it. So it took the fall damage, but once you go back into human form, that fall damage transfers, and the fight was just over. Oh
yeah, that's right. Because we had to calculate how high an eagle flies. Because I was a druid at the time, so I turned it into an eagle and brought the snail up. So we had to figure out how high an eagle could fly theoretically, and then how many feet in gravity. And there were a lot of calculations we did. But it died.
Physics just got re-involved in 5e. Oh no.
That's nice.
Every DM is going to be a little different, but I'm a firm believer in the rule of cool.
Oh yeah.
When I broke the boat. That's a big one. Oh, your boat. I'm so sorry about your boat.
Well, we were doing a one shot, and she, I had given the players this globe that you touch the spot on the globe and the boat would manifest on the globe, but they were trying to figure out and understand the magical item. And so she did, I think it was like...
I created a spot because I thought what it was going to do was show us where we were on the globe. It was what was it? Was it minor illusion or something? I don't even remember, but I put it. Oh no, it was basic. It was like prestidigitation. I just made a little spot in the shape of a skull because it sounded interesting because it was pirates. I don't know, over the globe, because I thought we could look up in the air and see it and see where we were, but not realizing that it was going to create a physical object. And based on some dice rolls and some other things, it basically fell and smashed our boat that also had the main big bad NPC that we were supposed to be dealing with the entire game.
Oh, no.
And we basically ended up swimming to an island. I don't know. He basically had to rewrite everything.
And that'll happen a lot when you use Rule of Cool, won't it?
It will, but God, it's worth it. It's worth it. Like you get to enjoy. Anytime your players are creative and clever, you know what I mean? A part of you goes, oh man, I can't believe they did that. But another part of you is like, your kid just hit a home run. You know what I mean? Like your kid just did something amazingly awesome and cool. And another part of you is like, hey, that was great. Like you pulled one over on me. Like that was really good. Or like, it's you want to celebrate and with them, you know what I mean? When they do that, but God, she breaks a lot of my games. Like,
we're getting a couple highlights here, apparently. Legend Hillary says, Billy's, oh God, what do I do? Is it an inspiration? One day I will get that face, but until then, I'll enjoy when Indigo Chameleon. What the hell does that mean?
That's awesome. Dim's Instant Fortress is coming there from Alcaboose Bender.
Alcaboose Bender during one of the final boss fights.
That's right.
It was coming down to the wire, and like 2 members of the party had already died, and one of my members knew that he was on his last legs. Ran forward, shoved the Instant Fortress into this thing's mouth, and activated.
Yeah.
Oh,
Nice.
That's a classic. That's awesome.
And
Yeah.
I mean, it took him out in the process because I was like, buddy, I'm all about this. This is high risk, high reward. Like, if you want to do this, and it was like, but just the clever uses of items, like give me a creative player with a few cantrips, at any day of the week, or a few random magical items.
The Book of Misspells. I love the Book of Misspells.
I gave Indigo Chameleon in our Neverland group the Book of Misspells, where once a day she can change one letter of one of her spells.
Nice.
Oh, man, that's awesome. So it changes the meaning by changing that one letter, is what you're like when you're reading.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
You can tell.
So, I'm trying to think of some of them. Teleport became telepoot.
Telepoot.
At some point, we took out a ship that way.
Ice Storm became Ick Storm, where it's just a bunch of garbage and mess and things like that.
That's awesome.
I'm trying to think of some of the others. I don't even remember. I'd have to look at the spell list that's in the book to see how the words got changed. But yeah, that's been a really fun one.
I love it when characters will sit on an item. I ran the first 3.0 game I think we played in. I ran over at Jeff's house when we were in high school. And one of the players, I gave an item. I think I might even rolled it on a table. He got an iron flask. Yep. I didn't think anything about it. He sat on the iron flask for a long time. And then at one point I decided to send them down to the hills. And they get before one of the lords' pit demons, and he just remembers he has this flask that's empty, and he could put a demon in it. And I forgot all about it. So he just traps this demon inside this bag. He goes, "Get the bottle, Adrian," because little Nicky had come out. So he was doing that whole bit, and I was like, "Oh, damn." So he traps this thing in there. I forget about it again. He walks around with this thing for like another year. And finally at the end, they're fighting the Trask, and he just takes the thing, uncorks it like a grenade, and throws it at the Trask. I was like, "Oh, shit. I forgot you had that." It'd been so long, I'd forgotten all about it. And I was like, this is how this game's going to end right here. Is this demon's now going to fight this Trask, and they're going to stand by like watching King Kong and Godzilla go at it. I'm like, this is horrible. I can't believe this all happened to me. But I love when players will sit on things and just bring them back out at just the right time. And you're like, yeah, I guess I got to let that go. Like, it's just how it is.
So we got some more.
We got more chat.
So Air Laser, we kind of covered this a little bit, but Air Laser was asking, was it covered how it's weird to DM for your spouse? Does it get competitive?
I don't know if it gets. I don't know if competitive is right. But I mean, it's so weird because like we know each other. We know each other really well. I mean, and we have this weird thing. It's like the more time we spend together, the more time we just kind of get on the same like brain wavelength and finish each other's thoughts and things of that sort. And so when you're playing in a game like this, all right, how about this? The secret for DMing for your spouse. You only need this one thing, and you'll be able to do it because you'll be able to talk about everything you want. You'll be able to juggle it all. Always have one ace. Always have one secret, one facet of the character, one ace in the hole that they don't know about. You don't use it as a weapon against them. You don't use it to hold over their head. But your spouse deserves the same look of surprise on their face as the rest of your players do. That joy from being surprised by some sort of twist and turn, that look on their face, or that moment of shock and excitement, they deserve that just as much as the rest of your players do. And to be able to give that to them is amazing. And it is worth it in the long.
So you still have to hide that notebook, right? So that
but I don't want
that notebook
thing. But two is also about the team, is about the group of players, because I may know there are going to be times when inadvertently, sometimes it's just because we happen to be talking campaign, I might know something that somebody else doesn't know. And it's not all the time, but it's going to happen once in a while.
Every once in a while. Yeah.
But I don't know what the other players at the table know. And I don't know what choices their characters are going to make. So because it's not just his story, because it's all of our stories, there's no way to know what's going to happen next week because he doesn't even know what's going to happen next week. You know what I mean?
Facts. Yeah.
So I don't ever really feel like the element of surprise is taken out from me. Because even when I go in thinking I know what I'm going to be doing, quite often that changes.
I just also love when I can surprise you too. Like when we'll have a session and you're like, how in the world did you keep that, or like hide this? And it was like, and you're like, this is so good. Like
there have also been times when he taunts me with it. Times when he's you need to emotionally prepare yourself for what's going to be happening. But, that's all I'm going to say.
We got some more chat responses in here.
A lot of them.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna skip Joker's first one here for a second. It's another topic we could probably cover another time. But Meowdeath says they screenshot or clip the streams where someone makes Scribe make the "oh God, what now" face. So is that a regular thing on your channel to always clip that when it happens?
She is very good about staying on top of clipping those. So she's got quite a few somewhere in a file, I'm sure.
And then
Joker on demand? Is it something we can see?
Oh no!
I know what we need to do is we need to just assemble those into a nice long video or something.
I'll send you a couple. The Indigo pulls them on me all the time, and like the other players, I think she's a bad influence. Honestly, the other players have taken that upon themselves to do things that just shocked the heck out of me. We had a player who pissed off a dragon and then left the cave, escaped just by the skin of his teeth, and then he came back to the cave, and the dragon goes, "Why are you here?" And he's like, "I just wanted to tell you to go F yourself." And I'm just like, I'm shocked. My eye, you can see it in my face of like, this player had no disregard. He was just like, this is what my character would have done. Like, nice. Even though I knew it meant certain death, I have amazing, creative, awesome players. I just happen to be married to one of them.
That's nice. Fantastic. Now, there are more redeemed questions here we're going to get to, but I was curious, with your gaming group that you predominantly play with, now, are these all actor types? Or is that...
Not everyone. No. We have quite a few people with like theater backgrounds or theme park entertainment that are at the table, but there's also probably an equal, if not slightly greater number that aren't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good mixed bag. There are some that we've met doing theater, and Huckleberry Bender and I, we actually met doing theater, and there's a few others that these circles tend to intermingle. Those Venn diagrams of like theater and like I do. I'm a voice actor, and there's a lot of of mixing in there as well. When it comes to all of those sort of circles, intermingling. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it is kind of a mixed group of individuals.
Now, based on our conversation so far, I think I know the answer to this. But since he just got here and he asked, I'm going to ask it anyway. But Joker here says, as someone who used to DM for his girlfriend, ex now, how did you deal with being blackmailed by your mate or favoritism on the game?
I will say this. Indigo Chameleon, more so than me, has always been very adamant with me not to show favoritism for her. So much so that I have to be like, dude, come on. Like you're going too far with this. Like introducing items to the group and letting the group decide what items they wanted, and her taking the scraps, and her going like, no, I want to make sure that, like, yes, we're married, but I want to make sure as a player that the group never feels like that there's any extra. And she's amazing at that.
I feel constantly kind of insecure about not wanting it to ever look like I have an advantage. So, and I'm also not a stuff-based person. I don't need items. Like I'm there for the joy of the game. I'm not there to get the biggest, baddest sword. It just, it doesn't interest me. So I try very, very hard to always err on the side of, not having that super mega amazing item. If I'm rolling for stats, I will almost always pick point buy or something along those lines, so that it doesn't look like I got really, really high stats. Even if that's what I happen to roll, like I just want everything to look on the level. And I will let other people pick first. But honestly, quite often when there's 6 items on the table and everybody goes around and picks an item, that thing that's left over is quite often that weird, quirky item that nobody quite knows what to do with. And it can be so much fun. Oh my gosh, we got a ring of wishes at one point that's not a ring of wishes. It just makes you wish it was the ring of wishes. And
That's fine.
I love this thing. I have used this item so much. It is one of my favorite items, and it is one of it. Nobody would. It's a fairly useless item on paper.
Who asked this question? This was Joker.
Yeah, Joker.
Joker. I know you said you tried this before with an ex-girlfriend. I'm sorry it didn't work out. If you could private message me how the bribing thing works, because I tried that. I'm always like, hey, maybe like advantage on initiative if you dishes, and I've never gotten her to take it. So if please
He
reach out
hinted a little at the end of his question that he would get certain advantages if her character didn't die. So
no, it doesn't work with Indigo Chameleon.
That's not going to work for you, Scribe. Sorry.
This has been fun. Thanks, guys.
We got a
Air
redeem
Laser.
question.
Yep. Say Air Laser. Ask. Hold on, I lost. How do you DM prep in secret when you live together, especially with the tabletop in real life sessions?
Because we don't see each other very much.
No.
It's called kids, right? One of you's always busy with the kids, the other's
Oh
writing
my gosh.
notes.
And we both work full-time jobs.
Mhm.
And actually he does a lot of planning on his breaks at work.
Wow.
So, and a lot of times his book, I don't see it. I assume it's in the car most of the time. Not that I would look in it because I don't want to know anyway. But so a lot of his planning is done outside of the home. We're so busy, honestly, that actually the other day, it was probably about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago or something, we actually got an hour, maybe an hour and a half to go out and have a beer together where we didn't have kids with us. And we sat down, and I told a mutual friend of ours afterwards, I was like, yeah, that can't happen very much because we had a lot of ideas for wonder.
We just talked, and I was like, is this how normal people visit with one another? Like, just hang out and have beers. You always, it's hard to find the time, but I've got lots of breaks when I'm not in the studio.
That part gets better as they get older too.
Yes,
I got a 14-year-old now. He can watch the other two. Me and the wife can go grab a beer if we want. It's great. It's great when they hit that age where they can watch each other. Like,
someday.
I don't know what ages you're at, but it's fantastic.
We're not there yet.
Not there yet. Well,
We
you'll
got
get
a
there
little while.
one day. It'll get better. Trust me. I'm there. It's nice. So I was going
Although
to
they
mention.
do give him advice on games. Actually, our eldest came up to him the other day he stopped me in the middle of the night. I don't even know what he was doing, but he was like, it was way past his bedtime, and he comes up with a book and he's like, I have an idea for his game. I need to tell Dad the idea for the game. And he's busy. He can't talk to you right now, and it's way past your bedtime. You need to tell him tomorrow. It's okay. Sure enough, up there with the book. Next day, all right, here's the book and here's the idea. And he's given them a lot. He's gotten a lot of ideas from them. They're diabolical.
guys, I don't know what to do. I don't have the heart to tell my players that every super creative thing that they've said is amazing is my 4-year-old. Like, it's my 4-year-old that I was just like, buddy, I don't know what to do here. And he'd be like, what if you did this? And I'd just like, then what happens? And
What if they were spiders and then they had knives attached to their legs?
all right, tell me more about the spider knife legs. Like,
It's great. It's great
Well, I
having
guess,
a little one around. You never know what's going to come out of their mouth. Like, they don't see and think about the world the same way we do.
Yeah.
Our DM threw this goat. And it was the goat that sees both sides.
Yep.
And we're in this game and we're messing with this goat, and we don't even know what the heck that means. And we find out later it was completely made up by one of Levi's kids. The goat that sees both sides. And he was just like, he just ran with it. Like, and you can get some great stuff that doesn't come out of a book anywhere, and it's all made by kids.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Well, it's funny we brought this topic up because Joker asked a question and basically saying, how's it to run a game in family? How do you explain to your kids that you role play, and do they play in your games? And it sounds like they're very involved in the creative process and know quite a bit about the gaming.
They do, and they love it. And we've had family games, and we've modified it a bit. And as they've gotten older, they're able to do a little bit more. But for a while, when like the youngest was just learning numbers, we would do a game, and and it was more about identifying the number on the D20, and that was what he got. And we'd simplify it and let them pick like 3 made up spells. What 3 things would your character do? And but really, when it comes down to it, and we've talked about this before, I can't think of anything that I would rather model for my children than adults getting together to tell stories.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's a beauty in the social aspect, in we're going to get together and we're going to tell stories as a group. We're going to be creative and come up with ideas and have adventures. And I feel really good about the fact that they're getting to grow up with this idea that, the things that they do every day, they go out in the schoolyard and they tell stories and they have adventures and they create characters. They do what we're doing. And they understand it probably better than we do because they're living in that creative place all the time.
Yeah, they just don't have the rules. That's all they don't. They just don't have the rules to mediate the arguments.
They don't have the map.
That's what they do. They just don't have the rules. That's why you have to step in and tell them to quit fighting every now and then. Right. And they go right back to playing. That's just how it works. You're just DMing their lives.
D20 at them.
Yeah, you're just DMing okay, you 2 roll this. Whichever one rolls higher wins. There you go. Now you're role playing.
Wow. So, I mean, it's funny because Leviathan's saying in the chat right now, he had to stop the game and explain that their long-term goal or long-term problem of players murdering each other. Wow, chat just moved on me there. I lost my spot. Yeah, he had to stop the game and explain what they were doing was wrong because they're murdering each other basically, and then they had to form a quorum apparently to settle a dispute.
don't tell my Zweihander players that. But I think we're gonna talk a lot more about playing with family next week. So keep that line of thought going, chat.
Potentially,
we'll definitely work into some of that next week for sure. I will say this. I know we talked a little bit about favoritism a little bit ago. I watched the last half of Wonder because I caught you guys kind of in the middle of Wonder and started watching, some of your episodes from there. And like I said, I didn't have time to go back and start at the beginning, unfortunately. But I went through the whole thing and I didn't know until you told me when we were setting this whole thing up that the 2 of you were married. So, I mean, there was definitely no favoritism. I had no idea. So, and then you're like, oh, no, can I do it with my husband? I was like, your husband? He's like, yeah, Scribe. I was like, oh, that's your husband. Okay, cool. Yeah, I had no idea. I was like, maybe I missed some comments in there I should have picked up on, but I didn't realize that was the case. So definitely no favoritism at the table as far as I could see.
That's good.
Good to know.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about how game has a lot of educational value. And I think I'm amazed it's not being used more aggressively in schools. Whether it's to teach mathematics, whether it's to teach social skills, creative writing, collaborative storytelling there's a lot of social dynamics at play there that are important. I would be interested to see what they can do with that. Have you heard of any of these sorts of efforts anywhere?
It's starting to happen. It's helping because D&D is losing the stigma that it had a long time ago.
Yeah.
A long time ago, it's not something you could have put into the schools because there were too many people that had some very wrong impressions about what D&D was.
Sure did. Yeah.
And it's becoming more mainstream. It's losing that stigma, which is great. But it also has to be modified for kids, not just because it's really designed for a lot lengthier span of time, not only campaign wise, but also in playing. You can't sit down with a group of kids and play a 4-hour game of D&D in the middle of class. It works for a club. It's harder to incorporate that directly into a classroom type setting. So there are people who are working on that, and I know that there are some things out there to help with it. I also know that it's coming into play in therapy and things like that, where it's giving people an opportunity to RP through things and that sort of thing. So I think that one of the beauties is as D&D becomes more mainstream, people are seeing that it has a lot of potential beyond just being a game.
Right.
For not for kids, for adults, for teenagers, and for a lot of different uses, educational, therapeutic, and everything in between,
Well, and I think it touches on a lot of what's going on now in education, with the different styles of learning. When you're looking at gaming, it hits it from a lot of different angles. You have the visual components, you have the numbers, you have, the stories, you have the kinesthetic kind of elements in there. You have a lot of different pieces ready to go to interface with different types of learners.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And it gives people a chance to, to explore math in a different way, to explore storytelling in a different way, to explore character creation, to explore who they are as a person, and how to interact and how to solve problems and all of these things that are so important. It's very much a multifaceted sort of experience.
Well, and I think the other thing it does, Joker's saying in here that researching for his Dark Ages vampire game taught him a lot about medieval era. That's something that I always had a hard time with as a student, was being motivated to interface with the information, right? Like, I could learn anything, but I have to be interested. There has to be something that makes it personal, right? And I think something like gaming, where you're creating a character who is living an experience, or you have a need to understand the math because you understand how your character works. There's a goal in there that immediately brings the student into the subject material. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting ahead of this, but I really would like to see a push on this, in the education system. I don't know what age group it'd be the most appropriate for, but it seems like it should be part of it.
I think at any age group, it works in its own way because it can be modified. We've seen it modified. We've modified it for younger children. Some of the simple logistics are what becomes difficult. It's the time spent in a game. It's the fact that it works really well for 4 or 5 or 6, or maybe even a maximum of 8. But if you have a class of 30, it's not like you can have 30 kids sit around. That becomes much more difficult and difficult to keep attention spans in. 30 adults who all know D&D in and out, sitting down at a table to play a game of D&D would be nearly impossible.
Very hard.
Well, you got to adapt them LARP rules. We played games with 50 players, didn't we, Jeff? Old vampire at the student union, 50 players, 6 DMs.
You hand the kids the swords, that all of a sudden you get the parent phone call.
It was vampire. They just had note cards that said sword.
Boy, it's tough though.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of logistical issues there. But I knew, pre-chat, we were talking a little bit about what you do, and I thought that'd be an interesting thing to kind of bring up a little bit there, just because of the angle with the kids there, because it is pretty fascinating. Yep. It's a great thing to see what our hobby is able to do. Wow, we are kind of coming in on that time already.
We are. We're pushing up here to the end, Jeff. Are we about ready to do some outros, you think?
I think we're probably at that point. So at this point, we kind of like to replug your show and make sure everyone knows what's going on, where they could find you, and all the important details.
The wheres and the wins.
We are on Twitch, twitch.tv/indigo_chameleon. We have a couple of games going on. We've got Wonderland on Tuesday nights. We have The Lost Isle on Thursdays, and we have Neverland on Fridays. We've got some one-shots coming down the pipeline that we're very excited about. Some chance to... we are plugged into the acting scene here in Orlando and Central Florida, and there's a lot of people that are out of work right now, and just there's a lot of uncertainty in the air, so we want to provide...
It really is.
Distraction as we can. So we're going to be inducting some new players into the cult of Dungeons and Dragons.
Awesome.
And getting them rolling dice for the first time via Discord and via Skype and whatever else we can do to provide a distraction during the kind of situations that we're in. There's some cool new stuff coming down the pipeline. We'll do I'll say that Wonderland season 2 is coming to a close. We've got about 10 or 11 episodes left. It's a little bit shorter run for season 2, and we've got something brand new that I'm very excited about. That I've there's always something cool about something new coming to the channel, and a brand new world that that is actually going to be my first established IP. Established world. Everything else has been sort of homebrewed and things of that sort. But this, I'm very excited about. So
that's cool.
Yeah, come and hang out with. Yeah,
Meowdeath there says that all of your games start at 8 p.m. Eastern. So
yes,
to make sure for people who may watch us on YouTube later or anywhere else, 8 p.m. Eastern on the days that he just mentioned. So
8 p.m. Eastern. Find us on Discord. Find us on Facebook. All the social media platforms. We're happy to have you be the 7th player at our table. The audience is always like a fun part of Indigo Chameleon, and being there and hanging out, and the chat, the active chat, makes the game more fun for the players, I think, too.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's fantastic. So definitely make sure you're checking out that channel if you're in the audience, later on YouTube if you're watching this, or on our podcast. Make sure you're checking that out. We want to make sure everyone's cross-pollinating as much as we can.
Yes, good term.
Good.
D&D family.
Exactly. So speaking of these sorts of things, we do have some links I'm going to start spamming out here about some of our family.
About the stream team while you're doing that, Jeff.
Yeah, so let's link that stream team there.
So we're going to get the stream team links up there. Our stream team is Hero approved. And the way this works is that all the members of Hero Approved have to be basically submitted by the audience. So the audience goes out, finds streams they like, they bring them to us, we vote on them, we decide we like them, we bring them in, but everything comes from the audience members of our various streams that are already in the stream team. So that's us, TT2KB. We have the Grouch Couch, do Drunks and Dragons on Sunday. They're a real trip. You want to check them out. They're heck of a show right there if you haven't caught them already. They play games and do some art and music throughout the rest of the week as well. The Liching Hour, if you haven't familiar with the Liching Hour,
yes, on
Tuesday nights he does Viva La Dungeon. He covers a lot of really obscure tabletop role-playing games. He's recently covered one that I think it's Space Kids, that is specifically designed for kids. So he's been talking a lot about it and doing some stuff with it recently. He's also been playing 1000-Year-Old Vampire, which is a single-player role-playing game where you follow the instructions in a book, and as you roll dice, you go back and forth through the book, and it tells you what your vampire forgot, and you have to like get rid of things and add new memories. Like I watched him play it; it's mesmerizing just to watch him play this game, and he interacts with the chat. It's fantastic. The Liching Hour is amazing. What he does, really, truly is. He's been a guest on the show already. You can find that episode back there somewhere as well. Really cool stuff from the Liching Hour. Newcomers, Dragons in the Dining Room. One of the newer members of the stream team. I know you
rated us earlier.
Thank you for the raid. They do a lot of cool stuff through the week as well. We have 2 new members to the stream team, Gangrez and Spooky Sprinkles, who are artists, and they're doing some artwork and some other cool stuff. So you can catch them around there as well. So
yeah, we'll have to add those to the link there.
Yeah, we'll have to I'll get their information soon. We'll make sure we get them added to our links down there below.
Perfect.
And of course, kind of our unofficial stream team member, our mod of the modern era, I think, as Cameron has now dubbed her, Air Laser, who is always here in the chat helping represent, and also does a lot of cool content herself, video games, and 5e. They're doing Lost Mines of Phandelver, I think, right now on her channel on Fridays. So it's going really, really well, and it's been a fun watch as well.
It is a good one. Yeah, make sure you're checking out our Discord if you're not already part of that. It's how you can be part of the conversations even when we're off the air, and keep touch with all of our past guests who seem to like to stay in there and hang out and chat. We also see people all the time, asking for players, finding games, that kind of stuff. And we also have a promotion section on there. So if you are a content creator, if you got something you want to put out there, we got a spot for you. Go on there, link your stuff, share it. Let's get it all over the place.
Absolutely.
And
talk a little bit about what we got going on this week. There is infighting going on here at TT2KB.
That's true.
There's been a line drawn in the sand. The gauntlet has been thrown down. Our DM, Levi, who just started his own show spontaneously over the weekend, which is DM to art, where he does character art for our characters. He's working on them, and to get his button gear, he's decided he's going to start streaming it. You can watch him do DM to art live, as he's currently working on my character Bowron. He has thrown down the gauntlet with our other member Cameron, who does the music for TT2KB, and Bardic Knowledge tomorrow night is going to have DM to art on before Bardic Knowledge, and they're making everyone choose teams. You got to be either on team DM to art or on team Bardic Knowledge now, as he has told us we have to tell Cameron how much his show sucks and vice versa. They're now going at each other. So this is turning into a feud. Cats and dogs. It's bad.
It's amazing how it started, because I mean, literally, we've been asking Levi to paint, draw some images for a while now, and then we've been saying the same for Cam to make some music, and they've determined that whoever finishes first is the winner, and we're gonna see what happens.
Cameron's got a bit of a head start now on Levi, so Levi's got to play some catch up, but he's on quarantine as a teacher. He ain't doing anything for 3 weeks. I have a feeling Levi's going to pass Cameron right back up again. We'll see how this turns out, but the real winners, as I said in our Discord today, is us, because we get character themes and character portraits, and they're going to happen way sooner now because these two are fighting. So fantastic. We're fighting. That's our little bit of infighting we got going on here. Then we all get to be friends again on Wednesday for 7 Days to Die, 10 p.m. You can find us playing 7 Days to Die here on our channel. And then it's the long haul to Saturday when Everstorm returns, our 5e homebrew fantasy game, Everstorm. That'll be Saturday, 10 p.m. So you can tune in and to catch us here live.
Absolutely. And we've recently done a big, massive dump of episodes onto YouTube. So if you're looking for any past episode of the Wisdom Check, they're all on there. If you're looking for Bardic Knowledge, all of them except for the most recent episodes on there. I'm going to get that on there, I promise. We've got a lot of the early episodes of the Everstorm on there now. So we just dumped all those on there. 6.
Wherever that episode 6 is gone, but all the rest of them are there. So...
we also have the Zweihander game that Dustin ran, all on there, except for the last episode, which I'm going to put on there really soon, I promise. And we got Bardic Knowledge all on there. And then I'm also going to be getting the new art show on there. So if you miss stuff, that's where you find it, is on the YouTube.
And in the meantime, they're all in collections here on the Twitch. So if you're watching on the computer, you want to go into the collections, you can find all of our past episodes, the 7 Days to Die, all of it in there on Twitch. Definitely a good time. And you got something to Scribe you're going to say, or you just?
No, I was just pointing down to the
calling it out.
He was just pointing down to the.
It's perfect. It's over there, I think. Yeah, and then merchandise. Apparently, supposedly, there's a 20% discount code floating around on our Discord. So if you go to our Redbubble site and our merch store there's a special deal going on. So 20% off on cool merchandise. I'm not saying we got this awesome, Wisdom Check mug to get on there, but that exists. And that Discord link is posted somewhere in the spam things I've put on there.
So it's already up on there. So find that link, get into our Discord, get hold of that merch and the discount for it for now. And while we're talking about discounts, Jeff, we're going to talk a little bit about what we're doing next week. Has it been finalized? Is it happening?
I'm not sure. I'm still waiting to hear back from our potential guest next week. And if that one is not a go, then I'm going to pull the trigger on the other potential guest, which would be really exciting. So we'll see how that plays out. But in that vein, I will say I did link a couple things of my dad, who is an artist. He is a 3D artist, and he makes his living exclusively on going to conventions and selling his sculptures. So as you can expect right now, there's a lot of convention closings. We are trying to promote his Patreon and his web store to kind of get him some relief during these trying times. So if you would be willing to be so generous, go to davidleepancake.com or check out his Patreon. There are discounts. I'm putting up all kinds of videos for him of making his art pieces. So you can watch that if you subscribe on there. If you decide you want a giant dragon head for your gaming room, we got you covered. So that'll be there.
And you can put them on payments.
Absolutely. So that's something we're working on. So we'll get those links up there. It looks like they're all spamming all over the place. So there's all that. I think that's enough plugging for the night.
And with all the canceled conventions, with the loss of Gary Con and all these other cons that are currently shutting down. Like if you if you're looking for good art, just go to davidleepancake.com and just check out what he has. You will not be disappointed.
Absolutely. So I want to say again, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Yep.
It's been a really lovely conversation. It was really nice having you here. Looks like the chat really enjoyed you here as well. So thank you. And
hey, thank you.
For the warm welcome. Appreciate
absolutely. Anytime. And I want to say again, also, thank you to the chat who's come in. We've had a really robust chat tonight. It's been nice getting you guys in there circulating, chatting about. And we're really lucky to have you all. So thank you so very much.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun.
Now, the last link I'm dropping in there for everyone watching is their season finale of Wonder, season 1. If you want to see how to close up a game, click on that link when this is over and take a watch and see how they end that in that one particular campaign. I'm telling you, it is like a master's thesis on how you end a campaign. So definitely watch it. It's definitely worth your time, and then go back to the beginning and watch that whole.
I agree. We're pretty great.
All right, so let's get this raid set up. We got a suggestion.
Do you need me to do that?
Yeah, let's. Is Spooky going right now?
Yeah, Spooky Sprinkles is on. Yeah, we'll raid her.
Yeah, let's go stop in. She's doing some art, right? Probably at this point.
That's what she does the most of. If she's doing anything else, I'll be surprised.
Join up and say hello. Let's support some artists that are out there right now. You know, we're all in this together.
It's true.
Let's do this together. And we'll see how long it takes us to actually hit this raid button, so we can just stare awkwardly into the screen or run the credits at the end there. Let's see if Clint's paying attention. Huh? Yeah. Could be a while.